Hello everybody, I'm continuing today with our videos on the American Civil War, and we're moving into 1862. I'm going to do two videos on 1862 because it's a really big year and there's lots and lots of battles. Again, even with those two videos, I'm not going to get anywhere near covering all of them. There's far too much. So I'm going to try and pick out some of the key battles and events in terms of what was going on in terms of changing the direction of the war and explaining what was happening. Right, so in early 62, the Union is gathering control of much of the Confederates' coastline. We've got a very important figure in Ambrose Burnside who's going to rise up within the Union ranks, who takes Roanoke Island, previously very famous for the mysterious disappearing of the English settlers going back to Tudor times. And he takes most of him and other parts of the Union force, most of North Carolina's ports, using a kind of a combination of naval and land forces. Burnside has also gone down in history because of his famous kind of mutton chops, and hence we have the word sideburns, which is just his name turned around. Another really kind of interesting bit of naval history at this point is the launching of two incredible ironclads. They're kind of the prototypes of this type of boat. The CSS Virginia, and on the Confederate side, on the Union side, the USS Monitor. These are two very odd-looking boats. I really recommend you do a bit more kind of research and looking into them. They face up in battle on 9th of March in 1862. The battle is really probably a draw, and the Virginia had previously gone out and sunk had gone out and sunk a couple of Union ships and done damage to a kind of large range of them, and the Monitors brought there to kind of counteract it. They hammer each other, but their iron shells are just too strong. And this sends shockwaves across the world, particularly in England, where people are suddenly going, right, okay, we've got this enormous fleet, but how would you deal with those? They are limited, however, in terms of their seaworthiness. They're very low in the water. They're very heavy. The Virginia kind of gets stuck in the river. They kind of go, well, we can't go further up the river because the bottom of the boat is too low. We can't go out to sea because it won't survive in open seas. So eventually in May, the Virginia is sunk by her own crew. The Monitor does attempt the high seas and is sank in a gale at the very end of 1862. The other thing that's happening is particularly in the West, the Union is seeing a lot of success. And there's an officer who is emerging, Ulysses S. Grant. He's emerging as a very successful officer in the West under General Halleck. And Grant will prove to be really important in the story of the war. Right, so first of the major battles I'm going to look at is Shiloh in April 62. It's in the Western Theatre. And Grant is encamped at Shiloh. He's waiting for reinforcement from Buell's army, and they're going to attack Corinth in Tennessee. So we've got here the pause really in terms of the Union on the way to an attack, and they are then attacked themselves. So it's a surprise attack. They aren't expecting it. The Confederacy were actually divided over whether the attack should take place at all. Beauregard has advised Johnston against attacking Grant's army. Grant and his men are caught by surprise. Notably, Sherman is said to say in battle, "Oh, we're under attack," as the guy next to him gets shot. There is general chaos and confusion. Again, in these early battles, there's a lot of people who are new to battle, and there's a lot of fleeing from the battlefield on both sides, notably on the Union side to start off with. They managed to hold enough men to eventually win a victory. Sherman is absolutely central to that. He will later on go on to become a key figure in the Union Army. But he's really important in terms of keeping his men together and seeing off the Confederate attack. Albert Johnson, the Confederate leader who kind of led the attack, this decision, actually died having been shot in the leg. It severed an artery. He's then replaced by Beauregard. As the battle goes on, Buell, who Grant was waiting for, does turn up with 25,000 men, and the second day of the battle really sees the Union take control with fresh troops against an exhausted Confederate force. Grant is a very controversial figure at this time, renowned for his hard drinking. And when there's calls for Lincoln to remove him, he famously says, "I cannot spare this man. He fights." And we also see other important consequences. There's a large number of casualties. We really are starting to see something on a really kind of huge scale. Both Confederacy and Union are now moving to this idea of total war, where everything is put over to the war effort. Corinth does eventually fall, where Beauregard eventually decides to abandon it. Davis is really angry with this, and we'll see a lot in '62 of the two presidents not being hugely impressed with what their generals are doing. And he replaces Beauregard with Bragg. Corinth is lost. But having said that, when Beauregard actually leaves it, it is rife with disease, and there's very little left there. In the Eastern Theater, we have what's known as the Peninsular Campaign. Lincoln and McClellan are clashing over strategy. Lincoln just wants McClellan to kind of essentially march out and start pushing the Confederacy back and engage them in the field. And McClellan wants to bypass all the rivers that run east to west, which we talked about in an earlier video, and he wants to kind of take his troops by boat and land them on the peninsula and attack Richmond from the east. Now, as this goes forward, in March, Johnson has withdrawn the Confederate troops from the Manassas, and this angers Davis. It also angers Lincoln, because when they go and look at what's been abandoned, they find out that McClellan has been massively duped over the size of the army that's been stood there and the resources and things that they had. Now, McClellan actually leaves Lincoln fearful at this point, because Lincoln and McClellan have differing views over how many men have been left to defend Washington. McClellan says he's left over 70,000. Lincoln counts 29,000. And so he starts denying McClellan men. And this is a general who's always nervous about taking the field as it is. He wanted 150,000 men for his Peninsular Campaign. Ultimately, Lincoln kind of pulls back about 50,000 of them. Now, Davis is also worried about his generals, but he does get a bit of respite. So McClellan and his men come across Yorktown. They besiege it. They again overestimate the number of defenders, and McClellan is duped again. He is out in terms of the men on the ground here. He's got 55,000 men against 13,000 defenders. He's made to believe it's a lot more, and the siege kind of slows McClellan down. McClellan was about to attack, at which point the Confederates have withdrawn. McClellan starts to advance very, very cautiously. And he's constantly convinced that he's outnumbered. He wants to wait for reinforcement. And Lincoln's not very happy with this. And at the same time, Davis is furious over the withdrawal and the loss of Yorktown. Lincoln is furious over the delay. And we really don't see either side kind of functioning particularly well at this point. Now, we then see a kind of real Confederate success, although often a lot of the battles involved in this look like defeats. But we see Stonewall Jackson of the First Manassas, the First Battle of Bull Run fame. He's sent in the Shenandoah Valley to stop the Union troops moving south into Richmond. There are 6 battles in all. There are about 7,000 Union casualties, but more importantly, Jackson diverts about 60,000 Union troops. So instead of attacking Richmond, he kind of holds them up, diverts them, makes them fearful again of Washington being attacked. He gains a load of rifles, he gains a load of medical stores, he gains a load of food. And there's some other kind of quite remarkable things. Jackson pushed his men to march so quickly during this campaign, they became known as his foot cavalry. So why is this important? Well, it meant essentially Lincoln sent no more troops to help McClellan. because he was worried about the threat that Jackson posed to Washington. And in this we get this almost perfect storm in terms of you've got this notoriously hesitant general on the front in terms of the Union side, and he's not going to push home the advantage and push for victory because he can't get the reinforcement he's asking for. Those reinforcements exist, but Jackson has tied them up in terms of the Shenandoah campaign. Another important set of battles that we see is the 7 Days, which takes place in June and into July. Again, McClellan continues to find a wide range of reasons not to attack Richmond, and so Lee attacks him. And again, McClellan thinks that the Confederates have got 200,000 men. They had about 90,000 men. Lee's attack is by no means an overwhelming success. His battle plans are over complicated. The command structure doesn't function properly. He gets really angry with people not carrying out orders as he wanted them to, and so there's a series of disjointed attacks. He's brought in Jackson, particularly again because of his fame and his success early on, but he seems to be really lethargic, kind of not pushing forward in the same pace and things. The reason why he's been brought in, this is possibly fatigue from the Shenandoah Valley campaign. The 7 Days does stop Richmond being taken. It is at huge cost. This is one of the reasons why some people are critical of Lee. So he loses over 20,000 men, over 20,000 casualties. The Union have about 5,000 less. So why is it so important? Well, it does taint to a degree the reputation of Jackson, who's gained this great reputation up until this point. Again, it highlights McClellan's hesitancy and his overestimation of Confederate strength. Now, the other bit is Lee as this kind of savior of the Confederacy. He seems to have saved Richmond, which shows his effectiveness. And it also shows the effectiveness of his offensive-defensive strategy. Right. So as we move forward, we're going to go on. I'll do another video and I'll look at Antietam and other key battles in 62. And then obviously I'll move on through 63, 64, and 65. So thank you very much for watching. Again, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Leave me any comments or any questions, and I'll get back to you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you all again soon.